Talk about forgiveness and boundaries. I was recently talking to a client and something had happened to her where she felt like there was a betrayal, and she's decided that this person can no longer be in her life, and also that she doesn't forgive him. And I wanted her to differentiate between the two. There's a boundary that needs to be set in that situation, which is she says no. It's a very clear no to her. He can't be in her space. They're not going to hang out together anymore. She is a no, right? That's her boundary. Whether she chooses to forgive him or not is separate from that. If eventually she feels like she can forgive him, it really has very little to do with him. She doesn't even have to tell him she's forgiven him. It's really within her, because forgiveness is much more about us letting go of our own kind of, resentment and pain and angst over it. You've probably heard people say this before, that often that when you choose not to forgive or when you hold on to resentment, it's like drinking poison hoping the other person will die, because usually we're the ones that are suffering and the other person's carrying on with their lives, doing their thing. But we're so afraid that if we forgive them, we're somehow like letting them off the hook or justifying their behavior. Forgiveness isn't really like that. Forgiveness is really about you, inside of you, and whether you're going to carry that poison around with you for the rest of your life. Boundaries are where we actually have a situation where a person says, that's a no for me. If you're going to treat me that way, then I am not going to be in your life. And then they have to, experience that. That's a much more meaningful consequence for their behavior. And if we set a boundary and we're very clear on that's a no for us, and then that person cannot be with us anymore, then we get the freedom and the space to say, now, am I going to let myself be tortured by this thing over and over again, or am I going to do the healing work underneath it to process it, metabolize it, and then eventually let it go? I also want to say another thing I told her very clearly is that our goal is not forgiveness, and we cannot rush forgiveness. Forgiveness comes in its own time, but we do need to do the inner work to heal and metabolize the pain that came from whatever the experience that feels like the betrayal is, and to even go back to childhood to see what's the kind of original source of betrayal that was similar to this. So remember, a boundary is different than forgiveness. We can set a boundary and still forgive someone. Forgiveness is for us.